And one of the pastimes in those days for people, because it was very depressing time, although we as children didn't realise how poor we were, and one of the reliefs for a lot of the working people was to go to the cinema and see the glitz and glamour on the screen. And we used to use the bell. It was they used to change the programme 3 times a week. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday and Saturday. And it wasn't until about 1946 that cinemas opened on Sunday, and then when they opened, they were only allowed to show certain films, and they weren't allowed to show the film that they were showing during the week. And also, part of the profits on Sunday cinema had to go to charity. I went to the Bell regularly. We used to love going there, and the Bell really was just a big hut. If you look at photographs of it from the air, it is just a big hut. It isn't a beautiful building like the Odeon or the Lido, it's just a wooden hut. And but it was the local cinema, and everybody liked going there. And as lads, we used to go in the threepenny seats, threepence and no money, and they were just a form covered with a bit of cloth, very hard on the rear end, but we used to go there. They were threepence. If you went into the sixpennies, they were plusher seats. They weren't very up to much, but they were plusher seats. But if you went into the ninepennies, they were quite plush seats. And on the back row in the ninepennies were double seats, where if you were courting, you took your girlfriend there. But I must admit that I never went on the double seats in the Bell for one particular reason, because I was too well known in Asserbridge. So I never went on the double seats. We used to enjoy ourselves at times. I don't think I should tell you this, but we used to take our peashooters to the Bell. And the Bell had, I think, about half a dozen big cinema lights with glass globes hanging down. And we would get our peashooters and you'd go, bing! And you knew you'd hit one of these, and that was the sole aim of the peashooters, to make this globe ring when you hit it with a peashooter. Mind you, they had a man there who used to look after the children. He used to sit on the front row. His name was Charlie Hume. A nice man in one sense, but he was 6'4" tall, which meant he didn't go down well with the children to a certain degree because of his height. And one day, I happened to go to Bet's Sweet Shop. Now, Bet's Sweet Shop was just across the way from the Bell, and they had a new cigarette machine in the vestibule of the shop. And for a penny, you could get 3 woodbines and 3 matches in this machine. And I didn't smoke. I was 14. I didn't smoke in those days at all. And I was tempted. And I looked up and down Blackburn Road to see if there was anybody coming. I looked into the shop to make sure Bet wasn't behind the counter, and I put my penny in this machine. Never smoked before, and got my packet of cigarettes. Then I went to the Bell, and I sat as low in my seat as I possibly could, and I lit up a cigarette. And I coughed, and I coughed, and I coughed so much I had to go to the toilet. And I still had my cigarette in my hand. I got into the toilet and I thought, and I just started clearing my throat when in walked Charlie Hume. And he said to me, "Now then, did I see the smoking?" And I said, "No." And he said, "I'm sure I saw the smoking." I said, "No." And I still had the little cigarette in my hand. And I was so frightened of him, I crushed the cigarette. I was more frightened of him than I was my hand burning, and it's quite true. And I managed to drop it. I said, "No, see." He said, "I'm sure I saw the smoking. If I cut thee again, they'll get one right logo." And I never smoked again till I was 16. And he used to come out, and one of the big things about going to the pictures in those days, you got more enjoyment talking about the film, the what ifs, if he hadn't have married her, would he have married this? you got more enjoyment out of talking about it than actually watching the film. In Bolton, the first cinema was in a place called Silverwell Lane, which is still there. It's a very narrow lane. It's only probably 8 or 9 feet across. But next to the cinema used to be Vose's Tripe Works. So the thing is that you could go to the cinema and you could smell the tripe, which was it wasn't a delicacy in Bolton. It was part and parcel of the diet of Bolton because tripe was cheap. And so it didn't last long in Chancellor Lane. I've forgotten what it was called. I think it was called the Imperial, but I'm not too sure. There was another theatre, cinema, called the Paragon on Bradshawgate, where Primark is now. That closed in 1936. But in the 30s, late 30s, and after the war, there was 22 cinemas in Bolton, including the Lido, which at times, especially at Christmas, they'd double up with a theatre show, as did the Theatre Royal. Part of the time it would be a cinema, and the other parts it was a theatre. The Hippodrome itself, when it was built, that was a theatre, and then in 1941 the Lawrence Williamson Repertory Players took it over as a theatre, and it never showed any films again until it closed in 1960. And the Players, they used to put a new play on every week, which was very good really, because there wasn't a big cast there to choose from. The other big cinemas, the Odeon, the Lido, the Theatre Royal and the Capitol, which became the ABC, they had restaurants where you could go and have a meal and then see the film. But actually, if you went and had a meal there, you couldn't jump the queue. If there was a big film on, which people were queuing up for to go and see, you had to have your meal and then get in the queue. But one night, my wife and myself went down to the Capitol, and one of the, not usherettes, one of the commissionaires who used to stand in front of the cinema, I had a quick word with him. I forgot to get in the queue. It was I can't remember the name of the film, but it was quite a big film. He said, "Oh, give me your money like that and I'll go and get your tickets." So we actually didn't queue that time. Talking about commissionaires, there was the Odeon, Lido, the Capitol, and the Queen's had commissionaires. The Odeon and the Lido and Capitol, they were quite posh commissionaires, but I'm sorry to say they weren't at the Queen's. The clothes were a little bit dowdy. But all the commissionaires would stand outside, and the cinema wasn't doing well. They would be shouting, "Seats in all parts, seats in all parts." And then if they were doing well, they would be shouting, "Standing room only, standing room only." So you could go in the cinema and watch the film, but you had to stand at the back until seats became free. And I know I've done that a number of times. And I always, when I or my friends went to the cinema and we stood at the back, the seats that were free were always in the middle of the row, which meant that everybody had to stand up to let you pass. And I don't know why ladies' feet always get in the way, and you just stand on the ladies' feet and they'd shout at you, and the men didn't seem to bother. You didn't seem to catch the men. I don't know what it was. One of those things. But I also remember people used to smoke in those days, and there was an ashtray on the back of the seat in front of you. And some days you get home and you find a small hole in your trousers because you've been smoking and you put your cigarette down there and it burned a hole in your trousers. Also, as when you're queuing up, mainly the Odeon I can remember, the queues as you face the Odeon, the queues on the right-hand side were for the 2 and 3s and 2 and 9pences, and the queues on the left-hand side were for the 1 and 6pennies and the 1 and 9s. And the commissionaire at times, when the queue was there, he'd say, "We've got 2 seats at 2 and 3, and 1 seat at 1 and 6pence. And so if you were on your own, you could jump the queue and go in there." A great thing about going to the cinema, if I can go back to the Bell, we used to enjoy going to the Bell. Cinemas had grades, and as has already been said about some of these films being old and tatty, the cinema on the top grade would be the Odeon and the Lido and the big cinemas in town. And then as you went down to smaller cinemas, you have your first grade, and your second grade would be the bigger cinemas in the out districts. Your third grade would be the next size. The Bell was fourth grade, and the Empire in Howard Street was fifth grade. That used to get the lovely name of the Bug Hut or whatever. And the thing was that films were, obviously the first grade got the films first, going down to the fifth grade, and they could be 2 years old when they got down there. The Bell they could be 18 months old when the Bell got them, and they used to have an advert in the local paper, the clearest pictures in town. And actually some of these films were so old, they had a snowstorm, and lines coming down the screen, they were so scratched. But we used to enjoy it. One of the great things about going to the Bell was you came out, say 10:15, and we used to go straight across to the chip shop, Grundy's chip shop, and you used to get a bag of chips and scraps. And on a cold winter's night, at the bottom of Belmont Road used to be a horse trough, and we would sit on this horse trough eating these fish and well, not fish, we couldn't afford fish, but these chips and scraps, and it was delicious. So going to the pictures was quite a thing. It lifted people's hearts up, because really and truly, as we say, there wasn't the safeguards and the rules that there are today, and consequently people used to enjoy for the sixpence or ninepence going to the pictures and sort of living out of themselves for a couple of hours and then enjoying the picture. At the moment, we go and see a friend of ours, and she's in her 70s, and she will lend us DVDs. The only trouble is, with these DVDs, some of them are not pictures that I enjoy. I'm not being selfish, but I don't enjoy them. But when we go to see her and take it back to her, we have to go through the film, which means that I have to watch the film so I can talk to her about what if they did this or did that. One thing I do remember about going to the pictures was that I always thought when you had two women together with one man, they were always falling out, because it always seemed a triangle where two women always wanted one particular man. And you'd have a nasty woman, you'd have a nice woman, and usually the nice woman won. And of course everybody came out of the pictures with the heart's eye, really, with this business. But it's quite true. Everybody likes a good ending, and I must admit that you felt good when you came out. Another little story, at the Capitol, I was a big Arthur Askey fan, and he made quite a number of films. And if you watch those films, took your time and went through the film, you would find big hiccups in the film. There was one called The Ghost Train that he made with Richard Murdoch, down in 1940, I think it was. And he was leaning out of a train, and he had a bowler hat on, and it fell off. So he pulled the communication cord and stopped the train, and he went to bring his bowler hat. Now it showed the engine pulling up, and then when he got his bowler hat and got back on the train, it showed a totally different engine pulling the train. And another one of his, I think it was called The Love Match, which was taken in Bolton, The Love Match, and he was a train driver. And in those days, Burning Park, on one end of the Bolton end of Burning Park, was the railway track, Bolton's Berry railway track. And you would find engines when the match was going, they'd stop and they'd be able to watch the match over the fence. And I remember he was an engine driver, and he actually stopped his engine overlooking the fence. And it showed the teams playing, and Bolton was certainly one of them. I can't remember who the other one was. And then they went back, he talked to his fireman, then came back, and it was a totally different match. there. So this was some of the corny things, yes. But my final thing about the cinema, I did enjoy the Ghost Train, and I went to see it. It was on at the Theatre Royal. I got there at 1:30 at lunchtime, and I came out at 10:15 at night. I went through that film 3 times. And also, a little aside really, we once went to the Crompton, which wasn't only about a mile from Osselbridge actually, top of Crompton Way. It's a supermarket now. And we met, I used to go to Castle Hill School, and we met some of our Castle Hill friends who lived at Tom Moore, and said, "Are you going in?" I said, "Yes." "Oh, we'll show you how you can get in free." And I said, "Oh, how do you get in free?" "We'll show you." And we stood outside the cinema, and we just kept peeping round to see if the receptionist at the pay box was looking. And if she wasn't, they said, "Right, you're only going one at a time. As soon as she turns around and goes, nip in and go to the toilets," because the toilets were in the foyer. Well, I was frightened to death. I was absolutely scared. I was sure I was going to get caught. And eventually 6 of us got into the toilets. And the idea was that you didn't all come out at once. You came out separately. And we came out one at a time. And the usherettes had got wind of this. And I remember going into the Crompton. I got in there, and I was scared to death. It wasn't worth the threats that I was saving or whatever it was. I was frightened to death, and they were coming round. You could saw them. They were looking for these lads who'd gone in free. And I sat down in my chair. In fact, I think I nearly kneeled down. So I never did that again. I wouldn't advise it for anybody. It's not worth to save the money for going in. And I think that's it. I remember one theatre, there was the Embassy on Deansgate cinema, and you went there, and unfortunately I remember getting the last seat in the house, and it was on the front row, and as you face the screen, it was on the far right hand side. And by the time the film had finished, I had neck ache because I had to look sideways at the screen. And if you look sideways at the screen, all the people are long and thin. You couldn't enjoy it, but there we go. And so that's some of the things about the cinema. Another point, I'll just say one more point. 2 of the cinemas had organs, Wurlitzers. Well, I'm not sure, I don't think they were Wurlitzers, but they were that type of an organ. And at the Odeon, it was Harry Croft that used to play. And at the Lido, it was Reginald Liversidge. He was one of the 3 BBC Reginalds, Reginald Liversidge, Reginald Fort and Reginald Dixon, regular players on the BBC, as was Harry Croft. And not every screening would they put the words on the screen, but they would put the words on occasionally. And everybody seems to like a sing-song. And when they put the words on the screen, of course, you can have a good sing. That's some of my memories of the cinema. Thank you.